So it is Christmas time, and good old Santa Konami has come along and given us a bunch of gifts, in of course the form of content. We've got Evilswarm, we've got Constellar, and we've even got a brand new counter trap for Starry Night put on the card trader. The rotating inventory card trader rather than just the regular inventory. So just a heads up before we jump into the actual video, there is a very good chance that with the new year, we get a brand new box, and in that new box, we get a bunch of Constellar support, which would obviously make this video feel quite outdated. If that is the case, obviously when the new stuff releases, I'll showcase a new deck list and some new videos or whatever else based on the brand new content, but until then, we're left with what we got now, which is already fairly decent, so without further ado, let's jump into this deck list. So here's today's deck list. Now just a reminder for getting to the deck list, if you guys are enjoying today's video and want to see more content just like this in the future, especially if you're a returning viewer, so apparently about 35% of you watching this are even subscribed to the channel, means 65% of you haven't even subscribed yet. So if you guys are enjoying this kind of content, or seeing more deck lists from me in the future, or more videos from me in the future, remember to leave a like on this video and consider subscribing to the channel down below. Also, obviously I do plan to make a Starry Night video, hopefully tomorrow if the card trader lets me, so if you do want to see that, remember to subscribe so you don't miss out, and let's just jump into this deck list. So today's deck list is obviously going to be Constellar, which at the moment is basically just a shitty version of Live Twin. It's a one card combo that nets you a draw, or in this case a search for a Constellar monster, and it ends on one lot of disruption. It's basically the same archetype, only it's going to be a lot worse at playing through disruption. That's of course why I'm playing 3 copies of Lance, and a couple Book of Moons, and even some Veilers to try to make sure our opponent doesn't set up too much during their turn, otherwise this deck list feels a hell of a lot worse. This deck feels pretty good going first, but going second, it's a bit up in the air. If your opponent sets up too much, you're probably doomed, but if they don't set up too much, even if you can just delay the turn a couple of times until eventually you can set up your combo, you're gonna do alright. There is also one other downside this deck list faces that Live Twin obviously doesn't, and that is consistency. Because this deck list has 6 starters, whereas Live Twin have as many as you want. So basically, there's going to be a roughly 79% chance to open correctly going first. Obviously that's higher going second, but obviously a 79% means 20% of your games you're gonna brick, or at least you're going to draw not optimally and have to try to stall the game until you do draw into your starter. And that's just how this archetype is at the moment. There's no extra starters you can really play. You can sort of cut a bunch of tech cards and just play a bunch of lower level Constellar monsters that special summon from hand and then just go for like 2 card combo sort of style. But in my sort of experience, that just felt really bad, especially for a deck list which is only ending on one lot of disruption. At that point you're just playing Live Twin except with a shit ton of bricks, so I think it's a lot better just to play with the 20% chance of bricking and just win the games you're not bricking, or at least try to win the games you're not bricking, because even the ones where you do brick, most of the time you do top deck into the card anyway, you can sort of just stall out the game with some crackdowns or warning points or whatever else. So I think this is how I want to play the deck list, at least for now, until more support is added in the future. But thankfully once you do get this deck list going, it does feel pretty goddamn good, as on top of being able to set up a 1 card compulse on legs in the form of your Constellar Pleiades or Pleiades, or I don't know how to pronounce this thing, but on top of setting up this card, you're also going to be setting up an infinite resource loop by looping your Constellar. Holy shit, I'm not going to bother trying to pronounce that thing. And you'll just be setting up this card so you can use it every single turn to add 1 Constellar monster from your deck to your hand, which obviously in a 1 card combo deck, adding any of these cards to your hand leads to your full combo ending on whatever Xyz monster you want to go into, thanks to the skill of course making it so that no matter what the levels are of these cards, you can go into whatever Xyz monster you want anyway. Speaking of the skill also allows you to reveal a Constellar monster in your hand and send 2 Constellar monsters from your deck to the graveyard, which of course sets up your Sombre, which allows you to banish cards from your graveyard to add other cards from the graveyard to your hand, activate this thing's effect, normal summon a second time for the turn, and that goes into whatever Xyz cards you want to go into for the turn. The only other Constellar monster in this deck list is going to be your This card basically contributes to special summon 1 Constellar monster from your hand or graveyard, so basically this thing just counts as having an extra starter on your deck list, because your skill can send this dude to the graveyard, allowing you to use this card to basically summon this thing back to the field and go for your 1-card combo. So without further ado, let's just jump into some gameplay showcasing what this deck list can do. Alright, let's jump into these replays. So obviously, once again, I do have to apologise because we are in King of Games and we are super late month, meaning it's pretty hard for me to get actually really decent replays against really decent players, as there isn't a whole lot around, and a lot of the deck lists I'm playing is just a bunch of memers who are in King of Games, can't get demoted because of the rank, so they just play whatever the hell they feel like. So I try to get some decent replays, but it's not the highest quality stuff as you normally expect, and I can't really gauge just how good this deck list is based on win rate and stuff when I'm playing against a whole lot of not that great sort of stuff. So I do think this deck list is okay. I do think it's probably not going to be a top tier deck because it's basically just a shitty version of Live Twin, so I don't know why you wouldn't just play Live Twin over this if you're in like a tournament or something, but it does feel alright, and with any new support, it'll probably be a fairly decent deck list, so let's check it out anyway. Alright, so up against U-Bell first. A matchup that can be pretty difficult because, of course, Super Poly and a bunch of light monsters. Doesn't feel too good. And we're going to be seeing an example of that right here. This guy actually searching for his Miracle Contact first, so I assume he actually opened Super Poly. Alright, so activating the skill, which allows us to send 2 Constellar monsters from the deck to the graveyard, and you're always going to be sending a copy of this card, and then just another Constellar monster. Normally this one, because it's the least important one, but you're always going to send this dude. Alright, normal summon your Constellar. He activates Super Poly immediately, so I don't get to use it. And that is basically my turn done. So now I'm going to have to try and delay the turn, to then hopefully get to combo off this card next turn. Alright, Warning Point, going to be stopping this being able to do lethal damage, put me a card face down, and thankfully he can't lethal me here. Didn't draw into another Neos or something. Alright, normal summoning this card, I can tribute it off to bring back my starter. And now he has no other disruption, we're good to go. Alright, Sombre going to be banishing to add this card back to hand, activating its effect for a second normal summon, which now searches for a copy of Sombre for the following turn. Alright, goes into my Constellar, which can bounce a card on the field. Bouncing, passing the turn. He summons again, thankfully isn't actually able to go into a U-Bell thingy here because he has no U-Bells currently, so we're good. We bounce another card, Crackdown seeing the bigger one, he trades in, and because we searched for our starter last turn, we can normal summon it, full combo, and we're good to go. And thankfully we can just set up lethal here because 2100 attack, these 2 cards can actually make a copy of your Knightmare Phoenix, and there is lethal on field. Yeah, I tried this deck list for a while using Compulse over the Crackdown. Crackdown felt way better, so I recommend playing Crackdown with this deck 100%. It feels way better than Compulse. Especially considering this deck list already has a bunch of return to hand effects. Any more return to hand effects and you're just not going to be removing any of your opponent's stuff, especially if they're playing a deck list that isn't as reliant on extra deck, or is you're trying to remove their stars before they go into their extra deck, you're basically going to be putting their cards back into their hand to use on the following turn. So it's probably better to at least have some sort of removal that isn't just return to hand effects. So I find Crackdown better than Compulse in this. Also lets you do some link summoning stuff as well, so you get to go for lethals a lot more often, as you saw in that last game. Alright. So up against a Ancient Warrior deck, which is kind of painful to verse. Thankfully we did open 1 Effect Veiler, so we can stop him going into too much on turn 1. But if he has any kind of brain cell, he basically wins from here because my hand is hot garbage and I drew no back row. But thankfully, this guy wasn't exactly the cream of the crop. So I take my spell card, or my skill, send him my cards, it's normal summon. For some reason, he didn't use this thing before I got to use this card's effect, because this thing, it's not just on summon, you actually have to like activate the effect, so you could just bounce this thing and I just lose the game from there, but thankfully he doesn't know what we're doing, so we're good to go. Summon my monster, get a search. And finally he decides to use it only after I've already gone to my extra deck and already removed his monster. Yeah, I don't know about that one. Then sums out his hand trap from hand, I set my back row. And this is kind of what I mean, by the way, by just... It's not... The deck list feels pretty goddamn bad, because it just can't play the disruption like something like Live Twin can with their quick play spell, or... I don't know, it just doesn't feel that great. Going second just... it's a bit sus. He had a Crackdown too, by the way. I don't know why he used this on the previous turn either. He just concedes because we had full combo from there. Alright, on to replay number 3. If you're wondering why I just did a bit of a cut there, it's because I clicked on the wrong replay, so let's just go into it. Up against Quinton. I completely forgot what this guy was playing. He was just playing some, like, legendary skill thing. Alright, Constellar Union. Sending my cards to the graveyard, normal summon. This is an example of a brick game, by the way. You'll notice I only opened this card, which doesn't actually feel that bad, because as long as you open some back row as well, which is, well, what you're opening if you're not opening the starter piece. As long as you open this card guarantees you that on the following turn, you will actually have your starting monster. So hopefully the back row can carry you for one turn. This Decklist doesn't feel too bad if you open this card, it just doesn't feel as great. Alright, Lunalight Fusion, summoning out a Saber Dancer. Pretty scary for a Decklist that only has one form of non-target destruction, or non-target removal. Thankfully this guy was really nice to me and he reduced his monster's attack by adding cards from deck to hand, or graveyard to hand. Because now I can do my Sombre combo, adding my dude, summoning my dude, getting a search. And with these cards I can now go into a copy of my whatever the hell this card's name is. But basically this thing can gain 1,000 attack during the battle phase. It can do that for any of your Constellars, and that allows me to trade into my 3,400 monster can trade into his 3,400 monster, which even means if he has a Lunalight Fusion, he can't even use his extra deck for it, which feels pretty good. Now it's fake double Crackdown, stealing his monster before I can use its effect. Which is thankfully that I did do this, otherwise he would have been able to bounce this Tiger back to hand, do a whole bunch of bullshit by simply sending the Lunalight card to the graveyard, whatever it's called. Alright, turn passes back, and of course, we can now combo off even further. These two cards, because they were both level 4, can go into my Bujin. Bujin can summon back the two monsters to go into an Exceed, and that's well over 5,000 damage. Even summoning out an M7 on top for even a little bit more damage as well. Alright. Up next. Alright, this guy was on. I forget what this guy was on as well. Alright, life point and boost. Alright, sets up a card. Oh, yeah, this duel I think started off very slow and then kind of built up, if I remember correctly. So it's activating my Sombre, getting my card, searching for my follow-up. Going into my, whatever this card's name is, swinging in, he activates Compulse. I saved the Thin Lance in hand in case he did have something. Alright. Dark Hole, which feels pretty bad, but in response, I'm actually going to bounce this card back to my extra deck, because obviously it's limited to one, we only have one copy of it, so bouncing itself means it goes back to the extra, so I can use it later on. So not the worst. Alright, summons a monster, I'm going to crack down that of course. Not sure why, I'm worried he has like another special summon from hand or something, I kind of forget how Bujin work, so I just steal this thing. IDP, which is like, I was planning specifically, because the reason I banished this dude when you normally add him to hand is because I wanted to add this guy to hand, so I could have used these two to go into your Link monster, then the Link monster goes into the Xyz monster, and then have lethal on field with those two. But of course, IDP is going to completely ruin that, where normally it wouldn't feel too bad, because this is a machine, this thing is a fairy, so there's a lot of different, whatever they are, types in this deck list, so it doesn't normally feel too bad. But in this situation, yeah, unlucky. Because these are obviously both fairy. Now we're into a top deck war. Alright, going to be Warding Pointing his monster, passing the turn. And I actually found out something cool here. Because turns out, the Constellar Summon with your skill also works even with other monsters that are not Constellar. So as long as you're summoning out a Constellar monster, you can still treat this one as a level 4 or whatever you're going into, even if the other card isn't a Constellar. So the 2 and the 4 both being light allows me to summon out a copy of my Constellar Omega, which only uses light monsters. Alright, beating over his monster and passing. I could have gone into a Could have Exceed summon this thing on top here, but I'm kind of scared this guy has more Dark Holes, and this thing of course is immune to spell and trap card effects. Or potentially immune if I decide to use its effect. Steal his monster. Go for a copy of Knightmare Phoenix, which is lethal on field. Alright, so a pretty cool duel, that one. Alright, final 2 replays. And I've completely forgotten what these ones are as well, so hopefully I'll get my memory jogged. Alright, up against Leo. Alright. Gonna be effect failing his monster so he doesn't get to set up in a gate. Has a second one, of course, because he's a lucky bastard. But he sets up only a spell and trap card in the gate, which our deck list doesn't care about at all. Crackdown's our monster, which is pretty annoying, but at least we have 2 back row to delay, and we do have follow-up for the following turn, so yeah, as long as we can survive. Decides not to use the Knightmare Phoenix, probably because we wanted to use this card's effect. Goes to use it, we're going to Warning Point in response. Decides to not go for any Link Summon here to then potentially set up the enough resources in Graveyard. I think he was very, very scared of this back row, so to be fair, even if he did go for it, the Book of Moon would have protected us anyway, and he prefers to have the Spell and Trap card negate set up. Alright, Tributing, and we've got a full combo here, because he's got absolutely no disruption here. We don't need our back row at all. Alright, searching for the Sombre, going for the dude. Hitting once, bouncing the other card. Don't care too much about this, just gonna leave it on the field. Summon this guy, of course we gotta flip that face down before it removes our monster. He still doesn't go for his boss monster. I think he actually has enough resources. No, he actually doesn't still. Needs 3 in grave, or in hand. Which is fine, because now we can just set up a copy of our M7. Both these cards can remove both these cards, and he knows it. Alright, final replay. Mr. Jack M. Who I do not think was playing the deck list you think he's playing when you see this character. He was playing, is this a Tenyu guy? Maybe not. Alright, Constellar sending a couple cards to the graveyard. Tributing, adding back. Remember, by the way, if you're going to be using your this card, make sure you actually send a copy of this to the graveyard with your skill. Otherwise, yeah, so if you open this card, make sure to send this one in combination with your dude. Right, and thankfully tributing this thing gives you a resource in graveyard to banish with this card. Alright, full setup. Got a couple of crackdowns. Oh no, it's Ancient Warrior. So just crack down his first monster. Taking and be searching for a copy of his Master Sun Mu, or Mao. And he's bouncing that back to his hand. He sets up some back row. But from here we can just bounce one card, go into a Knightmare Phoenix. Not even sure if I needed to do this, honestly. I had a copy of Forbidden Lance set, so that was probably a bit of a waste of cards. But anyway, that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you didn't leave a like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, I do plan to do a bunch of more videos based on the new stuff released, including the Starry Night or whatever that art type's called, once the card trader lets me have the card. And maybe even checking out some of that Evilswarm stuff as well, although I'm not particularly hopeful for it, but I'll probably give it a go. And if there's a brand new box and some new support, obviously I'll do an updated deck list for this video as well. So thank you guys for watching. Hope to see you in the next one. Laters.
Hey, big brother, can I watch SpongeBob?
Shut up, Mokuba. I'm busy flagging YouTube videos to compensate for the fact that I have an extremely small penis.
Oh.